Hello, everyone, and welcome to the You Talk show where you watch us talk. And even though this is the second recording, we still did not fuck up the intro.
Miraculous. Probably going to need to
Yeah,
bleep that one.
nah,
Have
I
we
don't
got a
believe
bleep tool
shit.
yet? Can we afford a bleep tool yet?
I mean, look, I can
No.
manually edit in bleeps, but realistically, will I?
No.
Never. So,
No. You're a lazy beep, beep, beep.
we can self bleep. That is,
So
you know
this
what? Let's try
is
and do that for this episode. Um,
Oh no, this is the first part of a five-part series, which I am referring to as How Do We Save the World? And
yes,
which I believe is formally being referred to
saving Earth before it's too
as
late.
Saving Earth Before It's Too Late. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'm the
and
guy with the prototype power book from Independence Day. We are going to send those aliens back home, and those aliens are the greedy capitalists and your elected officials who have decided to betray you for short-term gain, for profit and prosperity and the stimulation of economy that for some reason only benefits them and their mates, and leaves your children to live in a smog-filled dystopia that almost resembles the Hunger Games.
inspiring host. If only you
Yeah, I've
didn't
gotten
use the
myself
word
a little bit worked up
capitalist.
there.
If only you didn't use the word capitalist, people would like to. I think we should stress just now we're not communists. I am as far from a communist as you could get. I
No,
think
because
communism is
interestingly
stupid.
enough, communism has produced just as much environmental disaster in its history,
It's
despite
actually
being
true.
one of Germany's most successful exports worldwide.
Germany? Well, yeah,
Yeah, I'd like to
technically, Karl
remind you
Marx
that
was
Karl
German.
Marx was such a twat that we sent him elsewhere to try his ideas. Sorry, Russia, our fault. Wow,
Horst,
feels
Horst,
weird to be
Horst has a
apologizing to Russia
German.
under the present circumstances.
Yeah, this this got several levels of complicated. Because
Let's
Horst is German
decomplicate it.
background, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. How
Yeah,
do
yeah.
we
So
save
that
the
that's the
world?
context of that. Yes, and our first question really is how much time do we have before climate change becomes irreversible?
And the
Which
answer to
is a
that is none. We have
yeah.
no time because the oceans are already warming. And even if we reach net zero tomorrow morning, if I wake up tomorrow morning with having had the most amazing dream of a beautiful utopia where there is endless cheesecake and pork knuckles and
Oh,
perfect roast potatoes every time, and I
including sweet
wake up.
potato.
No, sweet potato is for heretics. And I find that we've reached net
This
zero.
means war
I
horse.
find that we've reached net zero. Shove it up you, Kyle.
I will bring
The
my
oceans are
swords,
still
motherfucker.
going to continue warming until at least the year 2300. All of our mathematical modeling says if we reach net zero tomorrow morning, we still have to deal with that. We've already done irreversible damage. The question
Yes.
becomes, do we have the political will to stop screwing it up further? Can we demand of our elected officials? Can we demand of the people we do business with? Can we demand of ourselves that we don't make this situation any worse?
And can okay, so in that case, let's change the question, and you might basically say the same thing, but think about it in a in a way that doesn't have you think of it as the exact same thing. But how long do we have before it becomes absolutely catastrophic? How long do we have to stop it from becoming absolutely catastrophic?
So are you looking at Mad Max levels of catastrophe, or are you looking at Gladys Berejiklian levels of bushfire?
I mean, the latter has already happened, so let's go with the former.
Nobody knows. It's as simple as that. When we talk about targets for climate change and global warming, we don't really talk about time. We talk about global warming in degrees, and we talk about an average measurement of degrees that is compared to an average taken between the years 1850 and 1900. The reasons for that are historical and in part driven by the Industrial Revolution, because it meant that we had very suddenly the ability to accurately determine and record on a day-to-day basis the conditions of the climate.
I'm
It's the
glad you
first
brought
time
that
in
up.
history where we have a basis for comparison.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's what I was about to actually mention and get into was the science can give us a rough timeline according to the amount of carbon emissions we're putting out now and the amount of carbon emissions we need to stop putting out in order to reach certain goals, certain milestones. Because this really is a deceptive question because it's not just one target. It's, we can't just get to 2049. Spoilers, the target is net zero by 2050 for, every country on the planet. But we can't just get to 2049 doing exactly what we're doing now and then just
switch it all
switch
off.
it off. Yeah. We actually need to hit milestones before then. It needs to be a process. So what are the milestones? There was one by 2030, but as we have discussed before, off screen, that one we've kind of blown right past, haven't we?
We haven't made the necessary changes to reach that. So
is it physically possible to make those changes at all? Let's just say we had the political will. I know it would be a
money
miracle
unlimited,
to do so.
political will unlimited?
Yes.
Sure.
Is it physically we could do it?
Yeah. Get me a time machine, I'll sort you out.
Okay. Without a time machine. Just, if we started today and there was unlimited political will and money, whatever government had a blank check to just absolutely get it done.
I'm going to spitball this. If we reduced our emissions by about 85% by 2028.
Is that physically possible? With unlimited money and political will?
I believe so. But I'm not a climate scientist, and I really would rather defer to one on that. Because that was some serious back of the napkin math that happened entirely in my head.
Well, I mean, if there's one thing that I think they can depend on, the audience can depend on us, it's rough mathematical assessments, as we're both pretty good at math. Actually, funny story about math, and I suspect you might have a funny story of your own. But I actually, because I was such a slow writer in my HSC, like, my head could go a million miles an hour, but my hand it was way too slow. A product of my unique education, unfortunately. But
yeah, but you got
downs.
pancake barbecue out of it. In any case,
yes, I got pancake barbecue, so it was worth. But anyway, so I ended up not completing I think it was a quarter or a fifth of the final maths exam in my HSC. And I still got a pretty high mark. And I did some maths and adjusted the mark for if only what I did of the maths exam was the whole maths exam. And it turned out to be about 85, 86%.
Solid.
So, it wasn't too bad. And the thing
I just wasn't silly enough to try and take maths during my HSC.
Huh? I thought that was compulsory, or is it just English that's compulsory?
It's just English that's compulsory.
Yeah, which is actually kind of weird because I think, what, that's a story for another time. Let's discuss education and its failures another time. Yeah.
Right now we're discussing economics and its failures with regards to the environment. So
yes.
I've just given you a rough timeline. Now, it's broadly agreed that within a more pragmatic frame, net zero isn't really going to happen by 2040 at this point, but that we still need to reduce our emissions by 45 or so % by 2040. That's to reach net zero by 2050. Now,
sorry, did you say what percentage was that? I blanked out for a second.
45% or so by 2040.
By 2040, and so currently by 2030, it's the target. I believe is 43% of the Australian government right now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know if we're on track to actually have that happen?
As I said in the video that's going to come out a day after this one, that's actually a realistic target. It's perfectly doable. It's going to require work, but it's a good, realistic target, and it is in line with the international community and the scientific consensus on what we must do. So, good job, Australia. You didn't screw it up for once.
Yay. But how far are we? How well along the way to that target are we? And is that 43%? That was 43% by 2030, or is it by 2040?
Let
I
me
think it was
just
by
quickly.
2030.
It was by yeah, as called for in the Paris Agreement. It's 45% by 2030 and net zero by 2050.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay, interesting.
heck. Okay, it is 45% by 2030 for the Paris Agreement. That's a yeah.
Okay. So we're just under what we need. So with a little bit of extra effort, we could achieve what we need to achieve.
Yep,
So
and
that's
if we
just a
use
little bit more.
some carbon sinking tech like building a shitload of grassland.
Yes, yes, we've discussed on this show
We
in
discussed this in
previous
the future.
episodes. Yeah, and we've discussed it
In
what is
future
now in the future for
episodes.
all of you. The possibility, or rather the usefulness itself of using things like holistic land management developed by a South African man called named Alan Savory, who essentially
I don't know. He
what it
sounds like
does is
kind
it
of an
uses.
unsavory character.
I just thought he sounded delicious. You know what? If you've actually seen a photo of him, that's I just made the worst joke in the world. All right, let's get back away from my terrible jokes and
That's
just
okay.
say that.
Speaking of teals, I called a cockatiel delicious a few days ago. In fairness, it smelled very good.
And just like that, I'm losing grasp on what we're talking about. So what we need to do is essentially 45% by 2030, which we're mostly on the way to doing. And the target right now is 43%. And the 2040 target was what again?
2040 target?
Yeah. Didn't you mention a
Heck.
2040 target earlier?
Yeah, and I was wrong because that was the 2030 target. But if you just give me a moment, here we go. These are the. Here we go. Jesus Christ, that is a text wall.
Yeah. Also, we should wrap this up.
It says about
soon.
72%. 72%.
72%. Okay. And then net zero by 2050.
Mhm.
So that's what we need to do. And those are the milestones. And where we're at right now is we've got a target that's just under what we actually need. And it seems like a government that is honestly trying to do that. So that answers the question. And you'll see us in the next episode talking about how we can actually make a transition to net zero before it's too late. And with that, we'll leave it there. Thank you for watching. All that like, share, and subscribe. I feel like a real YouTuber now. Like, share, and subscribe.
Hey, Kyle.
Yeah.
Did you hear about the werewolf YouTuber?
No.
He kept asking his followers to like and subscribe.
And with that, we'll end it. Take care, everyone.
Good night.